So I might say, I think I found it. Yeah, what did you find? I think I found my fuel delivery truck. Oh. Now we'll walk around it and take a much closer look at it in a minute, but first of all I'm going to hook onto it and pull it maybe 20-30 feet straight westward, get it out of this junk pile. It is just encapsulated in here and it smells, there's a strong fluid skunk in the area. I don't need to be caught working in a tight space under here with a polecat's Heinezit aimed right at me. So I think I'm going to try to air up at least 4 of the tires and see if we can pull it that way. Alright, well, I've got chains to the back of the trailer, to the front bumper. Hopefully we can pull it out. I'm in a very tight spot. I've got an old elm tree right up against it back there. Should be able to come forward. Got these old drain tiles. They are old and brittle. You can see they're already cracked. I'm just going to let it run over it. Whatever happens, happens. And I will clean up the damage at the end. A lot of junk to sneak through. Got a young tree, I'll just keep an eye. If I have to cut it down, I will. Got a little 3-point hitch here. Maybe I should just try to move that. Well, no, it's I don't know what it is. I'll just keep an eye on it. If I need to move it out of the way, I will. The work area is a little congested, but we're gonna get it. I've got this 20-foot path here to get in there with my truck and trailer. There is a little open ground here, but it's 360 degrees of trash in the grass. We've got evergreens and big elms and feed bins and cement with all kinds of junk, a fence. So we're just going to deal with it, but there it is. Now, if I remember things correctly, 51 was the first year with the vent window. 52 was the first year with the push button handle. And this has still got the old turn down handle. So I'm guessing this is a 51. Now I don't know the weight. As you can see, it was once a cement truck, company's dump truck, which is very cool. Now the deal I made on this, I called the guy. This is a local guy. I've known him for a long time, and I asked what his plans were for this, and I actually ended up calling the scrapyard. I said I would give you at least salvage price for this truck. I called the scrapyard. Steel's down right now, So with the tires, which they dock you for because they have to get rid of them, it wouldn't even bring $200. So I said, I'd be willing to give you $200, haul it away for you. He said, do you want the dump bed? I said, no, I'm putting a fuel tanker on it. He said, well, why don't you pull the dump bed off and all the scrap in it, haul that into the scrap yard, give me the cash you get, and you can have the truck and chassis. I said, that sounds like a deal. Now, it is kind of a shame because it's cool, you know. Still got the old graphics on the door there. It would be neat to just restore this as a dump truck even and find another cabin chassis. But this thing is just hammered to death. It's been patched many times. You know, I don't know if a guy would even want to attempt to straighten all this. You just have to cut it apart and fix it all. You know, it's got interesting little patches everywhere. So, you know, in a way it's a shame, but in another sense, what would you do if you were offered a free truck if you got rid of this for him? You know, if you had a project in mind like I do, and you didn't have a lot of cash to spend on it, someone offered you a free truck. If you got rid of this part of it, what would you do? I think you'd do the same exact thing. But let's look into this. Now, it is quite beat up. There's little rust on the cab corners, which isn't too surprising. This fender's seen better days. Pulled in there, pushed in there, I should say. A lot of filler on the cowl. Only the windshield, well, even the left-hand shield isn't in one piece. It is a desirable 5-window, so that's cool. No rear window. £15,000 load capacity. Check. I'm gonna see if I can get that other door open. This thing is just absolutely packed full of raccoon stuff, and cockleburs, pack rats have been in here. It is an absolute mess. Woo! There's cockleburs everywhere in this thing. If you're the kind of guy to have a bitter worst enemy, ask him over and drive something like this for you. You know, he can steer while you tow it. Woo! He'd be picking slivers out of his hiney for days. But anyway, let's take a look in here. This thing is complete by the looks of it. The owner said there was something wrong with the engine. That leaves it pretty much wide open. I remember a coworker being out here. I don't even know if he had business being out here, but he was trying to get this thing running about 15 years ago. And obviously he never succeeded. The owner said he never had any business being out here, so he didn't know what that was all about. But that was just that coworker. And this thing is actually the reason windows are busted out, probably some of the dents. This thing was actually a survivor of an EF5 tornado. That's one of the big ones, you know. That's about as big as they come on the scale. This was a survivor of a tornado back in 2007. They had just put new front tires on it, or, you know, and they still have the little mold tags here. But it just got parked after that and forgotten about, and it's never run since. So the old thing needs a little love and attention, and I think we can give it to her. I'm going to start with pulling all those drain tiles off and the hose and whatever else the scrapyard definitely will not want. I'll just pile them up over there with the others. Excuse my indigestion. And then we will look into getting this bed off. I expect, at the very least, to unhook 2 hinge pins and a pin on the cylinder. Oh, if it goes well. Oh, if I can sit here. Okay. Now there's 2 bolts there. I wonder if I could take all these off. I should shoot those with some oil. But what's that big pin there? That's up in the bed. I don't know. I'm going to have to study this. Hopefully we can find a somewhat easy way to do it. Ugh. Now I may be all wet here, but I'm hoping if I remove these 4 bolts on both sides, that'll do it for the hinge point. I'll still have some apparatus left down here, but hopefully that'll release it. Then I'll lift it a little and see what I need to do with the cylinder. I hate to crawl under there with all these burrs in the grass, but if I have to, I suppose. Well, further study shows that I can't do that because I'm blocked from getting my bottom bolts out. I would have to tilt this whole thing in order to get these bottom 2 bolts out. So I guess I'm going to try to knock the pin out. Okay, this may work. I loosened the bolt here in the center, this little clamp. There were no pins in the end of the big pin, and it's moving. Now once I get it, well, now it's stopped. You know, it's probably got the weight of the bed on it, so I should probably get my crane out and lift a little bit, see if I can take some weight off of that, unless it is all the way completely resting on the chassis frame. I don't know, but have to find another bar to hit that with. Well, a little bit of an update. Now that I just lifted the front end, of course I don't want to go too far and lose the load here in the bed, but I just needed to see how we were assembled, put together, how the piston was, or the cylinder was put in, and that is going to be far more work than I had hoped and realized. So this whole apparatus, the base of the piston, looks like I have two big bolts here. I could take off this cast iron piece, but then I have to deal with a huge piston. Keep calling it a piston, a cylinder, hanging down below the bed, which would be a kind of a problem. I've got two pins that cross the entire frame there to get that whole linkage system free, or probably what would end up being the easy way, is I have just a few welds on this channel iron, both sides. This one's actually broken already, I believe, but there, a couple welds there, this tab, and then I've got plate here, but it's not welded to the channel. I don't know if that's it or if there's some more clear in back. You know, there may be one more in back, but I don't see it right now. So if I take a torch and cut all those welds out, wouldn't take that long, then I could lift the whole apparatus up, this channel included, and all I would have to be concerned about is how our PTO pump here is, our hydraulic pump is hooked in to the cylinder. Disconnect that, everything goes with it, which would be best case scenario. So unfortunately it's been a pretty dry winter. I'm in tall grass. It would be a very likely fire hazard. I do not want to be responsible for touching off these evergreen trees. They go up like nothing else. Burn all this grass. You know, I'm just not going to be responsible for that. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to pack it up for now, set this back down, close everything up, leave it like it is. Going to come back with just the truck, no trailer, and flat tow it home. I'm about 8-9 miles from home, and then I will be free to wheel my torch out, cut these welds in short grass on a calm day, and I don't have to worry about any of that. I can have water right close by if I start the grass on fire, and it's my own yard. I don't need to be concerned about setting someone else's yard on fire. So unfortunately, that's where I'm at. I mainly came today anyway to get it out and see what I had to do, and it's just going to be a little more persnickety than I hoped. So we will rejoin you at my house, and we will get this thing off. Train, train, take me on out of this town. Now this is quite a ride. If the needle works, we're going, I don't know, 10? I've got my bride in front. She's a good sport, pulling me home. Blew out as many of the cooties and the cockleburrs and the raccoon stuff I could. Put this rubber mat on the seat. I hope nothing alive wakes up while I'm in here, that's for sure. Woo, mama! Well, I'd say we're roughly halfway, between half and 3/4, 5/8 of the way there. How's that? Asked her to stop because felt like that wheel there was gonna fall off. It's like being in a can of rocks, but it's hanging in there. Now comes the tricky part. We got to get on blacktop, but we'll make her. Yeah, I should close the door, huh? Just under 70,000 miles. Atta girl. Well, back to the can of rocks again. Woohoo! Well, one brief early March winter storm later, and here we are. Warm back up again, but it is windy. The snow did nothing for moisture, so it is dry, dry, dry. Chickened out about the torch. That just drops so much red hot slag. As you well know, I'm going to use grinder. Not much better, but better in my opinion. I've got tall grass over there, my young cedars. They go up, I mean, Teresa Wright walks by, they're on fire. So you can't, no. So I got a sprayer and a hose ready, just spent about 5-10 minutes spraying and wetting down. So I'm gonna climb under here, start cutting, keep a good weather eye out for smoke, and take care of it if it comes. Well, I've done simpler things, but I'm getting it. As you can see, I've got it split. Got an old axe used as a wedge. I can't find my log splitting wedge anywhere, so I just use that. And got one more weld. Unfortunately, have to use the torch for one weld on each side. This beggar right up in there, that is... Unfortunately, it's just jammed in there and I can't get a grinder to it, obviously. A guy could probably use a Sawzall, but that would be That would be very difficult. You'd have to saw through about an inch of material there just to get the weld cut out. So we'll just pay attention to what's going on around us. Okay, well, I certainly obliterated the old weld. We'll see if I did well enough. Well, well, I see a gap there. I don't know. Typically it pops for you. Oh yeah, I think it's loose. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So much for the bed being welded down. Now I just need to take care of the PTO shaft or whatever I want to do there. So we'll head there next. It's been a good half an hour since I cut that last weld, and just keeping an eye, been cleaning up tools, sun's going down, about to pack it in for the night, but just keeping an eye. I'll probably wet things down again one last time, keep this connected at the shop there, in case I need to run out here and spray something and I can see. You can't see it from here, but from our living room window, I can see this truck plain as day, so I'll easily be able to see a fire if it starts. But I've been laying under here, scraping on the PTO gearbox back here. This is the base of the cylinder up there. It looks like we got a cast piece coming down to the gearbox. Best case scenario, I undo the bolts and drop the whole unit down and keep it. And there's also a cable here. Worst case scenario, I end up cutting a shaft and letting that go with the bed. I'm not sure, not too keen on that idea. But we make this kind of, I mean, that's just 7/8 or 1 inch round rod with a keyway cut in it. We make that all the time at work. So, well, we don't make the rod, but we cut keys in them. So, but I'm gonna pack it in for tonight. Last night I lay on my pillow. Last night I lay on my bed. I stuck my 2 feet out the window. The next morning the neighbors were dead. Well, the nasty job is done. I don't imagine I will ever use this hydraulic pump, but you never know. Here's the look of the the cast piece at the base of the cylinder, what that looks like. So instead of hoses, it's just all solid mount and cast right into that. But anyway, this will, you know, I may very well just undo a shaft and call it good. And yeah, anyway, time to lift the bed off. So I'm having a couple problems. One, I need to put that pin back in the rear, or at least a temporary pin, because the cylinder is basically can move anywhere at once right now. It's actually the only thing, the cylinder and those little links are the only thing keeping the actual bed to the frame of the bed. I don't know how else to describe it. So I really need to connect it all so it doesn't all just flop everywhere. And the second one is on these cranes. This is a 7,000 pound capacity crane, but the farther away you get from vertical, your capacity just goes down a lot. So I really need to get my truck a whole lot closer to the bed, to the load I'm trying to pick up, as straight up as I can. So if I could cut this distance between the two trucks in half, that would be excellent. So I will try to do that. I will try to get the bed secured to the bed frame, not the truck frame. I'm not talking about the truck frame. Well, we got it. Went about as good as can be expected, I suppose. Ended up having to chain. There were no holes I could bolt or pin through up front to eliminate the hinge action there. So ended up just chaining both sides. And just have to remember to retrieve that at the salvage yard. Hopefully they help me out with that. Got a lot more to remove here. A lot more flat iron to torch off. I think I'll pull it over closer to the shed there. Just the closer I'm working towards the shed, the less I'm worrying about a fire. So I'll do that in a bit, and then we can clean that frame off and pull the fuel tanker over here and see if it fits. Well, I know it's going to fit, but see how it looks. Both frames, the fuel tanker and this one, have been cut off short. This one much more than the other. But I would actually like to add a good foot and a half, 2 feet maybe, to that even. So that's no big deal. I can get channel iron to match, or break some 1/4-inch plate the right shape and weld it back on. Not a big deal. But that's definitely for the future. For right now, I'm just getting this together. I suppose it'll be yard art for a while. Who knows? Hopefully it will go much sooner. But anyway, I got this. Gonna haul this off. I'm actually going to throw a bunch of my personal scrap in here, so when I take it in, he'll get a little bit more cash for it. Actually, a bit heavier than I expected it to be. So I doubt I have a ton there, as in an actual 2,000 pounds, but I bet you it's not too far off. So very cool. I will get that out of here hopefully this week or next week. And now for this project, I'm going to get these off, pull it by the shed, and then we will get that fuel tanker out here. Alright, I just finished removing all the spacer material, chiseling, cutting, grinding all the welds off, and eventually, when we do turn our attention to this as a project, you know, I'll have to fill in and smooth out cut marks and the gouging from when they welded it, and all that nonsense. But anyway, that gives us clearance to try to put the tank on. Now, and clearance as in the go-ahead, not clearance. Anyway, what they were on there for was to compensate for the rivet heads. You've got, you know, this was all riveted together at the factory, and so you might be thinking, well, dude, you just went backwards then, because now you have to put something back on there. Yes, I do, but I didn't want that. And I believe, I'll double check it when I get the tank over here, but it seems to me they just welded the tank frame right onto the truck frame without spacers. So they must have had holes on the bottom of that, but I'm not going to do that either. It was very common practice, and may still be in some places, to put hardwood, a strip of hardwood on top of the truck frame, and then your bed. And you know, that would just act like a body mount. It would absorb some amount of shock. It would eliminate squeaks and rattles and such a harsh ride, you know. What you doing? Yeah, you're a good girl. Okay, got it over here, and questions about what they did are answered. What they did is very questionable, but anyway, they built it narrow enough that it went on the inside of the rivet heads, as you can see, but there are no spacers on this side. And I should say, originally there were 6 tabs with bolts going through it, and then they just caught the bottom side with a tab as well. I'll show you up front, and it was just bolted on. But on the left side, they've got a spacer here. That may be the only one, actually. They've welded it inside and out. Other side, you've got the original tab there, but we look in here, there you can see it's still held on by the bolt, and they just gouged out the frame for the rivet heads there, so there's no spacers. So, you know, very questionable procedure there. So I would definitely put wood, is what I would do. I would put wood on that, make them fit, you know, use a countersink and get all my holes, get a countersink for the rivet heads, and then I would reuse these. So a bit of work will have to be done, obviously, but I'm going to start cutting all these welds, cut those front bolts off, and then we will move this thing to that thing. So what are we dealing with exactly here? Well, from what I've been able to figure out, and it's not much, we have 5UWS, and then maybe a 1, maybe an L, I don't know. The rest of the serial number is gone. You know, there should be another 4 to 8 more digits there, and we just don't have them. But based on the 5, that's Kansas City. U is in heavy trucks, U meant 51. W is the weight, and that's 6,400. And I'm not even sure off the top of my head what a 6,400 is exactly, whether that's 2 ton, 2.5, but it's a heavy truck, obviously. And then S, then you get into the month and the rest of the serial number. And from what I've been able to find, S doesn't even compute. It would go A through L for January through December. So possibly on these heavy trucks again, they had a different code. So I'm not 100% sure on the date. But I don't think we have an original 235. And the reason I say that is our stamping is F613J. F is Flint, then the date code. Now J is the code for 3100. Basically, half-ton through 1-ton code was J, which is clearly a lot larger. So I'm guessing we have a replacement engine that they pulled out of a smaller truck, but I'm not going to go scraping around for the casting numbers. I'd have to take the starter off and the other ones under there. So for now, we kind of know what we have, and that's good enough for me. Well, there you go, guys. That was a lot of fun, some hard work. I've got good equipment. I'm blessed enough to have equipment from work that I can easily do that kind of thing. The problem with that whole scenario, though, is that now you have a good visual for where you're trying to head, and it is so difficult. It's very tempting to just dive in and get to work on that. But unless you're new here, you know I have got projects everywhere going on. I don't have any room in here, so I've got to fight temptation as much as possible, and just leave it out there for now and look at it. Maybe one of these days when it gets permanently warmer outside, I mean for a season, you know, maybe we can get it running. That'd be fun. We'll mess around with that. But I want to know in the comments what direction you think I should go with the thing. I think I know, but I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts. After World War II, my grandpa came home and he bought out my great-grandpa, his dad's, one of his gas stations at the small town that I'm from. And so from the 40s to the late 60s, early 70s, he ran a gas station all the years his kids were growing up, and eventually he just got tired of all the constant late nights, you know, closing up at 10 o'clock and coming home. He started in a little one-room building and he expanded it. He had service bays by the end and a car wash attached, and that's where my dad grew up. In all those years, it was a Derby gas station. Derby Gas and Oil was a small Wichita-based petroleum company, and that was the brand of gas Grandpa sold all those years. I bought this decal to put on the gas pump you've probably often seen in the back of the shed here. I want to restore that pump, and I was going to make it a Derby brand, you know, of gas, just for fun, because that's what Grandpa used. And I know that's kind of hard to see through the wax paper there, the colors, but red, white, and blue. And I thought always thought it'd be fun to do a fuel delivery truck, put that on the doors, and then Grandpa's name and old party line phone number on the bed, and you know, any combination of red, white, and blue. Maybe white on the tank and the cab, fenders either blue, fenders, running board, and the toolboxes on the tank would be blue or all red, or any combination, you know, who knows. You could make it all one solid color and then trim it in red and blue, say, whatever. But you get the idea. Now I know at least one of you is thinking, hey guy, you had a free chassis made into a trailer and you had a dump bed. Why don't you make a dumping trailer? Well, I thought about it. You know, you could put a little gas engine on there and spin that hydraulic pump. It sounds doable, but the problem is where the axle's located on the trailer. On a dumping trailer, if you want any kind of load, and the bed alone would be a load, you want your axle in the center of the load, and you want two axles. If you only have one, it's going to teeter-totter, and you really need two. Or 4 tires in the 4 corners. But then you'd have to have a steering tongue, right? Way back there, it would put the entire load in the bed on the hitch of the truck pulling it. So a lot of work would have to go into it. You know, at first blush it seems like a great idea, but you would really have to do a lot. I have a dump trailer available at work, so don't really need it. And the scrap yard I'm taking this to often sets things aside that have more value than the scrap. So if they get farm trucks or vehicles they think is good enough to save, don't know if they will think about this in those terms, because this thing is awfully beat up. But if they think it's worth saving, they'll put it in a row, and they probably take things to auction once in a while, or a guy like me comes in and says, hey, how much you want for that old truck or that dump bed, and they'll sell it to them. So there's a chance, if they see value in it, that it will be saved for someone else. I personally just see too much work in it and too much money invested in it to get it to work how it should. So yeah, thanks so much for coming along, joining me. I didn't think I would end up with a truck this quickly for that thing. They'll never watch it, but I want to thank the farmer that gave me the tank. I want to thank the farmer and the man I know very well that gave me the truck. Hopefully very soon I can make it look good. Have a lot of fun doing that. In any case, thank you so much for watching. God bless you guys. We will see you on the next one.
What kind of car was it? A 49 Plymouth. Well, we got one battery at $28 and one at $22. Well, what's the difference? Well, one's better than the other. Look, that one on top's a $28 one. The one below is a $22 one.